Okay, I'm here. All right. Yeah. Yep. The red light is on. The numbers are clacking away. I'm at 12. I got a little dinghy in the view meter there. Oh, hey, what's going to happen here? Because of the way I got the studio set up, it's largely broken down. I'm basically using a tabletop. There's no table bottom with proper legs that are associated with it. I'm telling you, I'm broken down, literally, in a lot of different ways. I'm broken down. So, there's like two by fours under it and a tote, a, a plastic carry case that's ready to be carried, that's holding up my tabletop. And this is going to be the last video, one of the last videos I'm doing before I fully close down the shop. I'm working on a bigger project, a long-term project, a movie type of thing I'm working on, that has to do with CERN, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. And so I have articles I'm going to read and do a voiceover to put in there. And so there's about a half dozen of those. And then after I do that, then I'm going to close down the shop so that I can move. The plan is that I am planning on moving down south to be with my adopted daughter, Allison. And this is kind of a video, I guess, dedicated to her, to help us get together. And I'm also asking for donations to help in this process. Like there's gas involved to get from where I am to her, and there's what other expenses. So I'm gonna put the PayPal little thingy there. Let me move here so I can see myself. So I'm gonna put the PayPal link in the description if I remember. Hopefully I'll remember. And if not, I'll change the description to include it. But it's really important. This is I got let go of my day job. The boss found a replacement for me, and so this is the motivation. This is the time now, and in order to help me and help her, because she's looking for work and whatever. It's different down there. She doesn't have a car. Like it's a big thing. She has a friend down there. Not to tell her story, but it's part of what's happening is I'm helping her to pay for gas so her and her friend can look for work. And oh, good golly, this is life. Life sucks when you have to get into the details of it, and you have to support yourself and people. But that's what being a dad is about. So anyway, all right. So I don't think I have music queued up, but I don't think I'm gonna play an Aaron mix. I don't believe so. This isn't, maybe at the end. I don't know. If I need a smoke break, I will, I think. Depends on how long it takes to read through this. But essentially, this is a technical report. And I'm going to do here in this video what I started to do, or I had intended to do, at least from the beginning. You see, this is my Facebook group. It's not my Facebook page for me, but it's my Facebook group. And I'm admin. And I recently posted this, and I've also posted the same. I wanted to do the triumvirate platform, proper platform, with the exclusion of like Instagram or Discord or any of that stuff, right? Or Rumble. I have an account on Rumble. I have an account on all those places, and hopefully, when I get with Allison, the two of us together can make some of these more, I don't want to call them extraneous, but to me they're extraneous. That a lot of people are on, like Rumble, Discord, or whatever. And more on Patreon. We're planning on doing more on Patreon. Thank you for the people who are still there. Apparently, there's 5 of you still on Patreon. Thank you very much. I don't get a lot from it, but it's like it doesn't matter. I'm still plugging along on that, and I want to make sure that the people that are there at Patreon, they have something that you're not just there, but there's something from me, genuine and true. So when Allison gets here and we're together, I think we're going to be doing some more stuff on Patreon together, like a question and answer, like something like that, like a regular average person. Like have her, explain to her, have her teacher. This is the idea. Explain to her how the proper process works, and then have her ask me questions about it, and we'll chat and talk and get it to the point that she understands it. And believe me, if she understands it, then the rest of you will understand it. You can tell in the questions people ask, whether or not they get it. But that's a plan anyway. At least on what you're looking at, right? Like, at least when you're looking at it, what are you seeing there? And that's and a lot of these, when I do these for the group and for you guys, I'm explaining more about how the technology works rather than how it is the analog of the process that's happening out there, and what that is. And man, it's difficult because I know in a lot of cases people looking for that the information out there that they want, but they're trying to find it in the machine readings. And when you get the machine readings, it's not exactly what you're trying to get. But I'm like, there's this kind of nexus point of what people are looking for that isn't necessarily in the machine readings. But honest to goodness, before we can even get to the past the hyperbole of all the ascension rhetoric, I have my recollections. Before we can get into any of this higher order spiritual stuff, you need to know what the basics of what you're looking at there are. And if you're coming into this with some spiritual ascension based thing, you don't get extra credit for not knowing how the technology works. There's not another way to put it than that. Right? And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and it's a good reminder of what's important when we're doing this going forward. It's important not to be under a disillusionment, or mentally not in the right place of taking in new information because it's not jiving what you'd think the Schumann resonances are, or what, like, the ascension narrative or any of that stuff. It doesn't, it can't hold you back from learning what is true and correct from the proper technical guidelines, or the proper technical process as I know it, right? That's all this is, right? I'm giving you it properly as I understand it, okay? If you have a different belief or you have a different process, right, it's all on you, and leave it in the comments, right? That's fine. But this is a discussion of what, like these, when I do these, right, the current reports and the observations on, it's sort of an observations. The current report is what I do on Facebook. The observations is what I do on it's the same basic thing, give or take. The observations are what I'm looking at relatively right there in the spot. The current report, I'm giving you what the numbers are, right? And this gets into the qualitative and the quantitative, right? This is a perfect discussion here. That when I give you the current report, or in theory, originally, like I said, when I started doing this, at least this was the intention. We're getting back to basics here. This was originally intended, how I had envisioned this, more or less, was that I wanted to have a place that I could refer back to, a physical whiteboard, a physical place that had pictures, a place I could post it, that I could, take a capture of, that had the information there that we can look at. So there's the objective and the subjective. This is another way of looking at this as well. In literature, you're caused to view the perspective of the author as either subjective or objective. Is it talking about me, or is it me talking about someone else? Right. That's kind of what this is too. So in this case, in this work, in this example here, and what we're doing here, we're talking about qualitative versus quantitative, and one is the relative view of it all as a function, may not be to scale, It's one of the things that they talk about. An architectural drawing is going to be to scale, right? An artistic drawing may not be to scale. They may get everything in, and when it's done, it may, like the actual thing when it's done is going to be different than the artist's rendering. But the architectural drawing is to the scale, and it's going to be, blah, 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 right? So this is one of the things that we consider. Uh, the quantitative is the machinery itself. The quantitative is the architectural drawing, if you will, where it gives actual specific measurements and specific numbers, and it's not giving you a oh I'm not even sure what it's not giving you a overall look at it. If I think would be the fair. I'm not sure if I even have the right words to describe the difference between the two of them so that the average person can understand it. I'll do my best, though. All right, so 11:11. All right, so this is our general direction that we're looking at in this. All right, so once again, like I said, this is going to be in the style that I had originally intended on doing this, back to basics, or when I first started the Facebook and the YouTube channel around the same time, that one was going to kind of be dependent on the other, was going to work them together as a team and blah, blah, blah. Use one to promote the other and blah, blah, blah. So I have a difference, and the Facebook group has 4.6K, and the YouTube group has like 2.91K. So they haven't grown exactly side by side together. But, I started the Facebook group first. And that's been it's been a consistent, I've consistently been adding posts to there. And so I think it's important for the people on YouTube that, about the Facebook group. It is private, and you just answer the question, why are you here? My guides told me to ask that one general question, why are you here? But in 2 words or more, and that's important to understand, 2 words or more. Not everyone gets that 2-word minimum, and if you use one word that's sort of might be considered 2 words or multiple, it's like, all right, I'm depending on, depending. I'm not stuck on that. But if you don't give any answer at all, or if you give some snotty ass 1-word answer like yes, why are you here? I'm asking you the question, why are you here? And you give me the answer of yes. Yeah, no, we're declining that, right? Like these stupid kind of non-answer 1-word answers are not acceptable, right? So, you have to have some minimum standard. This is what my guides gave me in doing this, right? So, all right, so I'm going to get into the material now, 1326. I'm going to get into the material now, and ask my guides to be present with us and open up your understanding to this, that to help us out and get the understanding that we need here out of the material. And I do these, I have a lot of answers on stuff, but I learn, I kind of have to get review as well as I do these. So I may not learn anything necessarily, but I do enjoy talking with, people about stuff. And it certainly is a challenge to me to answer questions when I do premieres. And in the questions and comments, when people leave comments in the questions, like that can be fulfilling. Doesn't necessarily have to be, depending on the comments, but it can be. It's part of the rewarding part is when people say, I got something out of it. Thank you for doing this. I got more out of this than someone else has ever shown. You explained it in a new way, like these kind of things. These are meaningful. Okay, I'm back. All right. So I'm probably hello. Yeah, I told you about the shaking. We're using a tabletop without a bottom. And so I'm trying not to touch the table, but hey, it's gonna do what it does. Um, uh, so, um, so I probably should have declared, oh, hey, have a cigarette break or have a drink break or whatever. But now is a good time. So before I get into the material, if you want to pause here, at 15:15, it's probably a good point. And I'll wait for you to pause because I think I need. Uh, it's it's it was hot coffee. It's room temperature, so it's not a cool, refreshing beverage, but it's also not hot. It's a room temperature refreshing beverage. Um, Coffee is good at a lot of different temperatures. It holds itself well at cold. Kool-Aid, if you get, there's a lot of drinks you can't really heat them up and they're good. You gotta like freeze them. Like Kool-Aid is one of those. It's served really, really freaking cold, or frozen as like a frozen popsicle. But coffee, like you can do that with icicles, ice cubes rather. Freeze your coffee, your iced coffee, throw it in your iced coffee. Voila, voici. We came, we saw, we conquered, waboom. Like you can do that with like high C, or you can do that with, Kool-Aid, or you can Tang, and like these kind of things. But it's not the same if you heat it up, right? Like coffee, it is all and all. It is the all and the all that is all. Tea, you can't even really do that with it. Tea is, like, yeah, there's iced tea, right? But the same ones you're having hot isn't really cold. I don't know. But tea is all right. I'll let that go. I have iced tea, but I haven't had, well, I've had green tea, frozen green tea ice cream. Like, all right, I'll give you that, But regular tea, I haven't had ice cubes. But so it's, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But then again, I am biased in this, I do believe. So I don't know if it's a fair, debate, coffee or tea, if they're as, full range, temperature range. I don't know. The thing with tea, with coffee, it's hard to tell sometimes if it is. It's got that earthy kind of taste, whereas tea doesn't. If tea gets overheated, tea is more delicate. Whereas coffee can withstand a little bit of, and you're like, all right, it's mud anyway. You know what I mean? You just add a little bit more milk. With tea, you can't really do that. So I think that's where I'm at with that. If you will. All right. So that's just, my personal discussion on that, coffee time. We're at a coffee break. The union 15-minute coffee break. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm going to pause this to enjoy my room temperature cool coffee. And as usual, smoke them if you got them. All right. So, all right. So all right, let's get on to the material. It took me forever to arrange this, so we might as well use the arrangement at some point. All right, so this is the again from the Facebook group, and the boop, boop, boop. This is the report, right? This is the overall report that we're looking at. So I should probably give you this before we start. Because I call it a relatively calm day. And the way they have it on Facebook is the pictures on the bottom. When you go into you click the link, it goes on the bottom. All right. So, at the bottom. All right. So it's a relatively calm day, and it was 37 here. That's the number and the amplitude. And that's, again, pico electrovolts, which is tiny indeed. Okay, it's a whisper. It's all right. So I'm giving you the information. I don't know. Maybe this is maybe a 15-20 minute read. We'll have to see. All right. So this is the 4th of November current report from Tomsk Observatory. Reading on a relatively clear day. The subject matter is qualitative versus quantitative. All right. So the source. And this is Disclosure News .it, and this is out of Italy. Relatively calm conditions today. And I personally, I say this, I love these calm days, or relatively calm days, where there's not crazy spikes and crazy activity, because it gives me a chance to actually explain better the technology and the equipment of the true Schumann resonances, without any of the voltage spikes getting in the way of having to explain just the Schumann resonances. And this is, it's important to know what they are. If you're here and you're looking to, if you're looking to read the graphs, it's important that you know what they are and how to read them, right? I can't underscore that enough. I love these days without much activity, so I can better explain what the actual Schumann resonances are. In addition, how this relates to the reporting technology used, and now we're going to talk about that. That's the spectrogram and the dependencies. Right. First, it's important to understand that this visual aid is a screen capture of the spectrogram, as well as the 3 panels of dependency information. The top panel is the spectrogram, which takes the information from the lower 3 panels to combine them into one 3-dimensional image. The spectrogram is what is called the Schumann. Right? So when people talk, largely that I've seen, well, this is my experience and my observations, when people talk about the Schumann, that's what they're talking about, is the spectrogram, without any of the other stuff, so that you can tell what it is. So they're not including the dependency information of amplitude, quality, and frequency. Right. The Schumann refers to the spectrogram and not necessarily what the actual atmosphere is doing. So a lot of people, like, just in the way it's used, and it's not I don't mean this to be insulting against anyone, but if you don't know any better on what it is, you start looking at the spectrogram, the graphic report, as a thing that's a little different from what it is, right? And so it's not the spectrogram anymore, it's the Schumann, because it's telling you a different something, and the technical basics behind what it is are changed in misunderstanding what the spectrogram is and how the information is on there and how it's reported, and all of this, right? So that's why I do these, is so that you can understand technically how the process works, so that you're not misled into believing something of someone's narrative that it's not actually showing you on the finished report of the spectrogram. So the panels below the spectrogram are, I've talked about this before, amplitude, quality, and frequency, respectively. All right. So when Disclosure News sends it out, they have, from the beginning, they've sent out the 4 panels, of which I always include, 4 panels together of the spectrogram, the amplitude, the quality, and the frequency, together as one block of information. Amplitude is the signal that comes from the dipole antenna. A dipole is 2, right? 2 poles, 2-pole antenna. This detects the electric content, which is voltage, or a power rating, a plus or minus. This is also called a charge, and this is registered on the decibel scale, which is tens. Deci is 10. The upright spikes, and again, a reminder, the 0 starts at the top of the spectrogram. They're showing you the measurements of voltage. Okay, that's important to remember. It's the voltage, and that is not frequency. Those are not Schumann resonances. Those upright spikes, those are the readings from the antenna, from the dipole antenna. Quality, next item, quality is the magnetic flux, which is fluctuation or change of the signal. So the signal variation in strength from, and the quality is the magnetic side, which is a current, and current is a direction. So this detects the quality, or this detects the flow of, or fluctuation of the signal from north to south or east to west, because the magnets, the magnetic induction coils are, they're oriented north to south or east to west. So as it changes from north to south or east to west, you get the rise and fall in those numbers, right? You get the variation in those numbers, okay, for the quality. That's simply what that is. The atmosphere, all right, so quality, when they talk about, the people who don't know or not familiar, or they're new coming into this, they see quality, and the first thing that it gets kind of thrown around is they call it Q factor. And Q factor is a real thing, but that's not really what this truly is. The Q factor relates to the damping of a resonator. Okay, if you look it up on YouTube, you'll see Q factor relates to the damping of a resonator, and of course the Earth's atmosphere is the resonator. Okay, the atmosphere is the resonator for the purposes. I'm not sure how they're extracting. I'm not sure how they're extracting information on, if with the understanding of the Q factor as a damping mechanism. Okay, I haven't really heard an understanding of that, and it's confusing. It's more confusing when I hear that from them and I don't get a basic understanding or an explanation of that, and I'm left to try and figure it out, knowing what it really actually means. Right? So if you don't get it, it's not even on you that you're confused. It's that they're confused on their part and they don't know any better what it truly is. Right? So I think that's the best way to explain it. The quality measures magnetic content based on the picotesla scale. Frequency is the measurement in kilometers of wave peak to peak. Okay, coloring the chart. So this is where we start getting into the nitty gritty, meat and potatoes, as it were, of what's happening here. Coloring the chart. Firstly, let me say that detecting the color information is the most difficult and most meaningful aspect of determining what the charts are actually saying. Honestly, what is the point of being religious in your practice of checking these readings if you are just going to invent symptoms or physiological conditions that accompany the colors of the chart? Question. All right. So not that people are doing this, but what I'm saying is that this is not intended as an ascension meter. Like, oh, I have ascension symptoms and this proves, right? Like, these are one of the things that come with the scientific look on this, or look at this, that even if you are making claims, you have to document this scientifically as any other scientist would. And if you're coming into this with some ascension or a spiritual perspective or orientation, you cannot take the easy way out of saying that doesn't apply to me because I'm blah, 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 blah. And especially the problem in this community is people don't even know, well, how do you know it's ascension symptoms? Or I don't even know if I am ascending or any of this. And I go so much into this because, statistically speaking, there's more people who have come here from the beginning looking for some type of a spiritual or ascension or 5D gamma or whatever in their search for meaning in the graph readings. And that's why I'm doing this, and that's why I always have this bend on the talk when I kind of genuflect in my voice, my personal, when I get off of the teaching itself and I kind of go on these not tirade, maybe not a rant, hopefully it's not that, but when I go into this personal discussion of this topic, it's because there's, not because I'm linking it, but because so many other people have linked it, that there isn't anything left to, like, for me really to talk about, I've talked about how the technical process works, but I need to go into this aspect of it and explain how it relates when it doesn't. And that's really part of the discussion here when we talk about some spiritual principle. Like, I will give you spiritual principles, and they're not what you think they are, what you believe they are, and you can't come in here looking for a technical explanation and base your belief, your ontology, the veracity of it, and link it to or claim it's based on the technical readings, right? You have a graph, it's a technical thing. You cannot put your eggs in that basket when you have the qualitative version you're looking at. That's where all of this, in my humble opinion, that's where all of this confusion with people rests, is that they don't understand the difference between the qualitative and the quantitative views of it, and they're confusing one for the other, and that's where the whole mess is. And there's not people who are technologically adept enough to give you the explanation for why people are coming up with the Schumann resonances having these white peaks when resonances don't peak, and they're not understanding the qualitative versus the quantitative, and they're coming up with, a blah blah blah, all of this confusion, right? And it's not even because people want to be confused. And in many cases, people are coming into this trying to be unconfused and trying to square away the understanding of this. And it's really difficult because the difficulty that comes with putting the reports into their proper perspective. And I think that's about as simple as I can make that. I hope. I believe that it comes across to you as being simple. All right. So, all right. So, if you're going to this is a note on the physiological conditions of so-called ascension symptoms or whatever, or even just without it being anything greater than a spiritual, or even simply just keeping it, whatever your physiological condition is related to the atmospherics, that's what I'm talking about, of keeping track of it, keeping a notebook, where you are keeping track of the time in your neck of the woods, in your time of when these things happen, so that it's, how do I say this? Not that you need to be, but that it is verifiable on your end that things are happening, right? For you. So you're not feeling crazy, but so that you are objectively verifying what you know in your heart of hearts. I will tell you this from my own perspective, that when I ask the universe for answer to prayer, I need a confirmation on that, right? So it helps to solidify the mind. It helps to kind of channel and focus the intention of your pathway of saying, let me get confirmation. I don't believe that there's anything wrong at all in any way, that if you have a belief, that you're asking the universe to give you some type of confirmation for what you're doing, or what you're if the pathway you're following is correct and proper, right? I'll just put it that way, right? Yeah, I prayed, I asked God, I feel I got some motivation and some inspiration, some direction, but I'm not sure. That's why it's important to have those numerical constants there to not only to validate and verify and authenticate, but are those the validation again of the confirmation that you've been heard, that the universe has heard you, right? So part of this, it gets to, what I'm saying is the following the data, like it's not that I don't necessarily believe people when they say, oh, well, when that happens, I feel this or this way or that. Like, okay, I'm in this knowing that there's things other forces at work, other than, like telluric currents, I mean, talking about, like other currents, magnetic currents that aren't measured on here, that aren't registered on this, that are a thing that happen, that I know happen, but are not on there. And so, okay, so that's part of what this is the truth seeker pathway is that I can't let it be understood that, oh, this is happening if I know something else is going on. Like, for example, the barometric pressure. A lot of that affects people, a lot of people, and that affects the ceiling. When the ceiling comes down, and the ceiling, as we're starting talking about the parts, the lower parts of the ionosphere and the atmosphere coming down, so that it kind of compresses and other things happen than just what might show up on the Schumann resonances in Russia, in Tomsk, Russia. Okay, your results may vary, your local results may vary, and I've said this from the very beginning of know your most local interferences first. Okay, it's important to know what the educational model coming from a teaching school, right? They teach technicians, they teach the stuff to it at the doctorate level, right? They have the equipment there, and they have been teaching at the master's to doctorates level for, I don't know, 100 years, whatever, a while. Tomsk University, State TSU, Tomsk State University, I'm talking about. And so they've been teaching people this for a while. They know their stuff. And so they're giving you the idealized, quote unquote, perfect model of the Schumann resonances in the modes manner, which is both the electric and the magnetic side, as I'm talking about here. And so they're giving you this idealized perfect, because they can, version of it, but it's not what's exactly happening in your neck of the woods if you're getting a lot more lightning, or if there's other more local interferences of where you are. Some of those might include seismic activity, and that's where the data from Cumaonia, Italy, the other one, the VLF, which documents the earthquake channels, where that may be more apropos because those channels are actually stronger, right? In the nanoscale, whereas Schumann resonances are in the pico scale, 1,000 times of an order magnitude weaker than the other one that I just mentioned, right? And the telluric, again, the telluric currents, ALFVEN currents, ALFVEN currents, are in the nanoscale, and the KB index is in the nanoscale. The Earth's magnetic, the actual heartbeat of the Earth, if you're going to call it that, is the VLF channel, which is 1,000 times stronger than the Schumann resonances. All right, so this is why this is all is important to understand that there is that the first and foremost order of things is it's not necessarily that it's not the Schumann resonances, but there's stronger influences that are around you that it's important for me to mention, right? And so if you're going to say, oh, I know it, then you've got to line up the times that you're feeling something with the times that the spikes happen, and account for the differential in time and all these things, right? So if you're going to declare that, it's important for you, especially if it's a spiritual quest for you to do this, right? If you think that this is part of your spiritual evolution into a greater timeline or whatever, any of that, right? That's up to you. But you got to work that. That's part of the work, right? You don't get any spiritual benefit from sitting on your ass and it coming to you. Nah, that's not ever any of the teachings how it works, but that's just what I understand. That's me understanding what I understand. So, anyway, so relative to let's finish up this chapter. Keep in mind that the colors of the chart are used to express a three-dimensional image based on two separate types of antennae. The dipole and the copper wound induction coil are detecting two separate types of signals. By its nature, the power voltage rating is stronger than the magnetic side measurement of the quality or magnetic fluctuation. All right. Okay, so now is probably a good time to pause this, right? I'm going to stop reading. I am of myself. I may make some coffee soon, I don't know, but I'm certainly going to have a drink of my room temperature beverage, and I would suggest you to do the same. If you have it, might as well drink it. And I'm going to, in the meantime, I'm going to put that up there so we have. Look at how nice all that looks. We got the name of my recently renamed Facebook group, right, with the basic uh, message or the whatever the hell the plot of our video is, and and we have our cold, refreshing beverage. All right, so now is a good point to pause. Yeah, I need to make some coffee soon. Because I have coffee. I don't want to go and buy it if I have it, although I do need to buy some milk soon. So let's see, where are we? All right, so the dependencies, a few sections. I don't really. Oh, good God, this is kind of long. Oh God, I'm, I love doing these. Now would normally be, oh my God, 41 minutes into this. This is gonna play. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll do some music. All right, you know what? Hold on. The Union 45-minute break. All right, so hold on. Let me do like 5 minutes of music. And actually, yeah, that'll give me a chance to make some coffee, I think, and whatever. All right, so hold on. Let me see what we got here. Yeah, we're at 41 minutes, almost 42. So this has been a little bit longer than I thought it was going to be. And again, this is for Allison. It's her birthday. Tomorrow is her birthday, right? So this is a surprise present for Allison, I think, right? And she's my love. She's my sweetheart, and I really want to be with her. So this is kind of hopefully a birthday present, and if you could support it, right? So it's okay. So it's a birthday. So I don't have any cake, but I do have some music. There we go. And so I'm going to turn the mic off so you can hear the music. Okay, we're back. Let's pause this here music a little bit. All right. So we're back. Okay. All right. A lot of numbers. Red lights blinking. I should say it's solid when it's there's an equal sign when it's paused. All right. So let's. I'm gonna check my coffee. So hopefully that's birthday music for Allison. And I miss her. I need to get to her. We need to get to. There's nothing up here for me here in the Northeast. She's down there by herself. She doesn't have any family now. One person who's in another country, way the other side of the world. It's just time. I don't have anyone. Right? I've said this before. I don't make a big deal about it, but it's like, I asked the universe, so when am I supposed to get someone at the end of my life? Being rhetorically asking as a funny guy, toward the end of my life, well, I'm 55, and here's someone, don't ask questions that you don't really want the answer to. I guess that's it. So anyway, she's the one I'm supposed to be with, and, happy birthday, baby, I love you. All right, so relative to the material at hand, quantitative versus qualitative. I hadn't intended music, but like, my God, this is going on forever. And I knew it'd be kind of long. I'm like thinking 15, 20 minutes. Well, that was just the introductory paragraph. You know me. Not only am I the deep dive guy, I'm the long ass writer guy. I just can't stop talking about this crap once I get started. Because I'm like, you don't can put down so much in the word, right? So I have the word here, and then I always figured too that that's why I would have the videos, as I'd explain what was there, right? So I'd give you the objective, and then the subjective would be the videos, right? And so this is more or less how it's kind of working, right? It was intended that way, all right? So the two words need to get known now, quickly, because it's what we are talking about, and that's where the confusion is, right? And that's certainly what the purpose of this essay here is, the expository writing essay is. The two words are qualitative and quantitative. So the dependency panels are quantitative. Qualitative refers to a view or a chart or perspective that is not the actual one-to-one measurements, but a manner of showing all of these elements in a relationship or some relational format, which is based on the constraints of the scope of the meter or the system, or whatever you're putting this into. Like an artist's rendering, a lot of times, of a building, a new building, it's got that kind of look to it, and it's even though they do it they'll do it to scale, it still has that sort of it's a qualitative and it's not a quantitative view. Like when it's done, it's going to look a little different. Blueprints, technical blueprints are different, but the artist's rendering is a qualitative. The architect's architectural drawings and the blueprints are quantitative because there's an actual quantity that's attached to it. All right. The spectrogram, So the qualitative is a relationship base. It's kind of what they're trying to show you. Or a lot of times they'll color it like like with the temperature reports, they'll color them a certain way to give you a feeling rather than an idea of what's happening. Like if they're talking about color and the temperature, the global warming or heating or whatever, and they give you the two polarities of color of red and green, and red is global warming and blue is global cooling, for example, right? The temperature charts, they can turn up the saturation in the reds, so it's a qualitative view, so it looks a certain way, rather than the quantitative views that give you the actual number per number view of the chart that you're looking at, right? And this is an important thing to understand when you're in this kind of field of the technical graphs and the technical meter readings, of knowing exactly what it is you're reading. This is really super important. So the spectrogram, working together system. The spectrogram, what they commonly call the Schumann, is a qualitative view. It's not the actual measurements. For example, the white spike is always going to peg the meter. So when we talk about like the voltage, the decibel spikes coming from the dipole antenna, the charge plus or minus as measured in decibels, the power rating, right? That is scaled to fit the height of the spectrogram. They can't literally physically change the machine once it's built. Like, it's impossible. I don't know how you would do that. So the scale of it changes depending on the height, depending on how much, how much data is coming. The signal path, the signal strength, the height of the signal strength is at scaled, so the rest of it will fit in there and give you a relative view of the two forces, the electric and the magnetic, working together, right? So the white spike, and I've talked about this. The spikes are scaled to fit into the spectrogram. The quantitative dependencies are the lower three panels of which I showed you in the music break best I could. I showed you in the first one, the spectrogram, and then underneath it is the amplitude, and then below that is the quality, and you couldn't see the frequency, but that's the last dependency graph below that. Right? So the lower three panels are amplitude, quality, and frequency. This is the raw data, but it's of course filtered, and it's conditioned and filtered to get you the exact signal that they're looking for, because these are so weak, right? You got to filter out the extraneous stuff and blah, 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 right? So these are associated with the actual number values are on either side of the dependency information. The dependencies are giving you actual numerical measurements in 4 modes, which are given as color information. Decrypting and decrypting this information may be the most difficult thing that you have to do learning about the Schumann resonances. May or maybe so, maybe not. All right. So what are the dependencies? I've said this phrase before. The dependencies are the 3 dependencies are considered to be the axes of movement of the stylus or the color making apparatus in the spectrogram. So the thing that's plotting the color on the spectrogram is the stylus. It's what plots the colors. So each color represents a mode of operation of the measurements. There are 4 colors of each dependency of amplitude, quality, and frequency. Here's the trick. What are the resonances? What are resonances? So this is all of everything here in my view. Schumann was the man's name. In real life, he was a professor. Here, his name, I said he, her. Here, it should be 2 R's. His name represents a visual aid. So Schumann, as the spectrogram, is a visual aid. It's not one for one what's happening in the environment. You got to understand that. It's much less important to remember the man's name than what he discovered. I will humbly offer that to you. Again, it's much less important to remember the man's name than what it was he did and what he discovered. Okay? The discovery named after Schumann is that of atmospheric resonances, or the standing waves. Professor Schumann himself describes these resonances as the effect of striking a bell. Okay? The reverberations that come afterwards. Resonances are standing waves. These This is a collision or interference of multiple fundamental or original waves that break on each other or create an oscillation or a hum that stays in place. All right, you know what? It's a new paragraph here, all right? Oh, good God, this is a long one. Oh, this is the last one. All right. So, hold on. So before I even get started, let's take a break here. All right. Probably a good place. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pause it on my end. It's a good place for me to pause it on your end. So, got to check my coffee. It's done. Let's meet back in a few minutes, okay? And reconnoiter, if you will. So I'm at the 1 hour, 7 minute mark. All right. So that's not... Okay. I'm back. All right. So, a collision. All right. 1734 or 10734. All right. So, we're talking about resonances. What's a resonance? All right. So the resonances are standing waves, interference patterns. Like that's what, you know, sound waves that kind of build up and give you a richness and a quality to it. And it's sort of what they're talking about with the magnetic quality to it. It's giving you this quality. It's not just the... It's hard to explain this to people because I kind of have a picture, and a lot of this is done mathematically. And even if I knew the math like that, I still couldn't convey that to you. You'd have to know the math of your own. And so I always try to give a picture to this. And sometimes, you know, the picture here we have, the spectrogram still isn't really truly explaining the concepts behind a resonance, because there's this misunderstanding of frequency, that a resonance is a frequency that can rise, without understanding the mechanics or the physics that it takes to cause or create a resonance. And so as a technician, not a scientist, right? As a scientist, maybe I could give you some math, but that's probably worse for you because you don't, as the average person, you don't really understand the math anyway. And that's the problem with the modes, is there's math. The 1, 1 to 1, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4. Right? How good at fractions are you? Question mark. I don't know. I'm not really that great with them either, but I understand that that's, you know, these basic fractions. You know, I do building stuff, and you need fractions out there, right? I've worked with fractions. Like, all right, so I'm not afraid of them. I don't really prefer them, but you can't live in a world without fractions. You know, that's a building kind of thing. So, I love it. I get the espresso blend of any coffee that's available, and they have some here that are a Bosquello, and there's another one, I forget what it is, that are a special blend, and I put it in like it's regular coffee, and, you know, I use brown sugar. There's no creamer today. I'm saving money for the time being. Maybe later I'll get some, I don't know. Saving money to get my baby here. You know, like, maybe I don't need so much creamer in my coffee. Or maybe I can go to the station that has creamer and kind of scam some from them. I don't know. Anyway, onward and upward. So, so the idea of the waves resonating in place, and if like, this is what's most important here. This is what's the important part of learning how to read this, is that we're not talking about waves, frequencies that rise. Like, that's not what the resonances are. The Schumann resonances operate in place. They hum, they vibrate, they oscillate right in place, right where they are. This does happen around the world, but it's stationary. It's stable where it's happening. It's stable. It's stationary to the people. Right? It's not rising. That's not what they do. That's not what they're going to be doing. That's not, you know, you can't look at that and say, oh, hey, you know, like, what, yeah, you can't look at what's there that's been stable and see these peaks and say, oh, well, it's rising. periodically, the frequency always bounces back to that 7.8 locus point between 7.5 and 7.8. And that's where you start getting the frequency differentials is this to the 7.8 hertz. And remember, hertz is a rate. It's a frequency rate. It's not a fundamental frequency rate. The fundamental propagates. The Schumann resonances don't propagate. Right? So this is one of the things we're talking about, is this element of it humming in place or staying in or vibrating in place, interfering with itself, and acting as a type of gravity. All right, because this is what's important to understand, is that not only is it not rising, the Schumann resonances are staying put exactly where they are. They're not the means and the mechanism of you ascending. Right? If you're going to, not everyone is going to be ascending. Not everyone's moving on. You need to make that personal choice, that personal decision to move onward. Otherwise, it ain't happening. And I'm mentioning this, going on with this, about why resonances are standing waves and why they're a gravity and they're not a frequency that's rising. And a lot of people have given me a pushback and flack about this because, they have the idea, this grand idea that Schumann's resonances are rising because they're on principle that they're supposed to be, because now's the time, and it's a splitting of the worlds, a blah blah, whatever their philosophy or their idea is, that I have to dissuade them from, to disabuse them from those notions, whatever it is, that I assure you there's a number of reasons why resonances aren't rising, especially in lieu of your crackpot theories, for a nicest way to put it, You believing, first off, not knowing that Schumann resonances is a set of harmonics, first and foremost, knowing that operates as a team is your first, foray into illogic and bereftitude of idea of what it is we're talking about. But it's the start of the misunderstanding of what's really truly happening. And so at that level, if you're not understanding what the series of harmonics are, and you just have a belief it's one frequency, then a world of falling down the stairs comes after that, or falling down the hill, or whatever. A series of comic misperceptions comes from that, to the point that at the bottom of the hill, you've concocted a bunch of half-baked ideas to support the misconception that started at the beginning of misreading the graphical information from the technical reports. So that's why it's important to understand why, the resonances are not propagating, they don't propagate, and why the resonances aren't, flowing, they're not moving, they stay in place. It's something that happens around the world. It's a phenomena that happens around the world because the lightning, transits around the world, and it acts in place there, and it's a wonderful thing, but it acts in place to keep things stable, and especially mentally stable. I'll just tell you that. That's really important. Mentally stable. That's the biggest out of everything all of everything that people talk about, like the mental stability that comes with the gravity of the Schumann resonances. That is the one most important thing that is missing, I think, or whatever. Hard to kind of say. Anyway, so the hum of the vibrating, the Schumann resonances, I'm written up with the text. The element of hum or vibrating, staying in place but not moving, not propagating, is difficult for a lot of people to grasp. It's, they're not, if you're not new to this, if you are new to this, it's a difficult thing for a first timer to wrap his or her head around of what exactly the Schumann resonances are, that even though they are found around the world, and they do encircle the globe, that they are in situ, in situation. Like that's what the scientific phrase is in place. Resonances do not move, they do not propagate. They are a product or a difference between two original waves, the fundamental waves. The color code, which do not move or propagate. All right, the color code of the spectrogram is the most difficult part of this to figure out. Right? In my humble view, my experience in the 5 years doing this, there's no easy nor intuitive way to look at the color information that they give you on a spectrogram, right? Without knowing what's up with it, what its deal is, what it's doing, without knowing that there's hardware, the signal path, signal lines that are fed into it, and what the spectrogram's job is. Without knowing these most basic things, it's not intuitive to figure out what the spectrogram, any spectrogram, is telling you. And then on top of it, what specifically the Tomsk Schumann resonance spectrogram is also telling you. Okay. If you have no, and this is my experience here, right? If you have no previous experience in reading VU, that's volumes per unit, meter or graphs or sensory meter readings, then this is going to be a new experience with a fairly steep learning curve for you. Okay. And I try to be humble and patient to people so that they can understand it, but there's a long, steep learning curve involved in this, and it's difficult for people when you start out with a misunderstanding at the beginning of what it is, right? I'll just humbly put it to you that way. Right? And that's part of what the job here is to disabuse, as they say, to disabuse you of the notion with which you're coming here to learn about. Right? If you're coming here to learn about the process of the Schumann resonances, you need to learn how the antenna functions and what the spectrogram is really truly telling you, right? It's not, and especially when it's not the so-called ascension energy or 5D or gamma or whatever, because those, if there are antennas that can pick up the gamma or the X-ray or that's fine, but they have to be built for them. And the Schumann resonances are the lowest of the low frequency, the lowest of the low amplitude that you're going to get, that they have to be designed for that. And that's one of the things that has to be understood, that the higher order, higher magnitude ascension energy, what you're calling that, which is the gamma, your antenna has to be designed to pick that up. It doesn't randomly automatically pick up noise in the other antennas. That's not how it works. It's not going to be detectable by the other antenna. Physically, it's not detectable by the other antenna on the lower end that's not designed to pick it up. Just simply put. All that is good stuff. All right. So the spectrogram is not picking up or detecting anything from the actual environment. It's not the antenna. I've mentioned this before. The most colorful reports, and I'm just going to say this as a general principle of thought, right? The most colorful report is not the technically accurate one. A lot of times they give you other technical reports that go with it, but these qualitative views are not the most numerically, technically correct. Right? It's not how it works. You don't get the full color version as a representative of objective reality, even one step more removed from what I'm saying, the principle I'm saying, that the convenience of these white spikes being, incoming white light, when this is like that, even that term itself is just a nonsensical kind of term scientifically. It may end relative to ascension. That's not what, like how you're ascending or whatever. And like there's this mess of misinformation that comes with all of this thing because people believe it's literally photographically picking up this information, these signals from the air. magically. I don't know how they perceive that's the spectrogram is picking up this information. Okay, they don't say it. It's not ever said. Right? Other than it being magic, right? All right. So the most fully colored one is the mediated version, the qualified version, and it's not there. It's not there intentionally to snare you, but it does serve admirably in this function. In order to grasp, In order to grasp the coloring schema or schemata, we got to go back to resonances. What are resonances? These are standing waves or interference patterns that develop as the waves cancel out or reinforce each other. As the fundamental or original waves, the ones that propagate, the originating waves, the fundamental waves, interact and interfere with each other, the patterns develop in place or in situ as the waves cross over each other and mangle each other. And in situ is the place. So again, they don't propagate, but they hum right there in place. So propagate means, like the current in like the water. I just have the analogy of like going out boating and you see the current moving out and the waves going with the current, right? So that's not what the Schumann resonances do. They hum in place, right there in place, but around the world. Okay, this is a phenomenon that happens around the world. The Schumann resonances happen right there in the spot. They do not move or propagate. The graphical reports, the graphical reports are attempting to show you a contrived image of standing wave patterns of the atmospheric electromagnetics or radio waves in the immediate environment. That's probably not clear, but I meant it to be as clear as it can. Your results near you may vary. Yet, it might be close depending on where you are. The information here was detected at Tomsk, Russia. This is important to know. Right? So they like in case, because I said this at the very beginning, but in case you weren't paying attention, or maybe you're here late, whatever. But this is coming from Russia, Tomsk, Russia, in the middle of nowhere, Russia. Sorry, it's not nowhere exactly, but it's way the country's big, right? So way out in Siberia, is it? I'm not sure where. Ukraine, I think it's Ukrainian. Which I don't think they're Russian now, technically, whatever, I don't even know. Correct me. Feel free to correct me in the comments, if you will. So anyway, and I've explained before that Kumiania may be a stronger signal because they're giving up the VLF for earthquake and that kind of stuff. Right? Your results nearest you will vary. Okay, but it might be close. Right? Where am I? Hello. The color information of the modes is difficult to fathom for those who are not familiar with harmonics. Schumann is not simply one resonant frequency. It is a series of resonant harmonics that build or establish over time. Hello, where are you? The modes are the standard way of measuring as a relative or relational aspect the two interdependent forces of electricity and magnetism. Okay. So one goes vertically, the other is horizontally. It goes out at 90 degrees from it. Modes use a relative scale which feature a coloring protocol that is engineered. So they're arbitrarily assigned, but they're engineered to represent a three-dimensional image of resonance and standing waves. This is extremely complex, complicated, and technical kind of stuff. It is. It is not intuitive simply for looking at it. The coloring protocol is not showing us a physical representation of the atmosphere, as a lot of people believe. There are technical factors that have to be understood when interpreting the blended colors. Right? If one understands, If one believes that the spectrogram's visual representation is an analog or a physical representation of incoming, these phrases should be familiar with people. I've said them before, and they're out there in the community. Incoming white light, ascension energies, incoming gamma, 5D energies, any of this, then this core belief is going to provide trouble when reading this technically accurate. Like if you're trying to figure out what it is from one of these perspectives, then it's not going to be an accurate representation. Feel free to believe whatever makes you comfortable. My place here is not to provide you with more fodder for a belief system. Right? A lot of people are coming here looking, once again, statistically speaking, they're coming here as part of a belief system to establish something through the meter readings, the Schumann specifically. The modes system of measurement is a relationship. Oh, good God, this pointer. Is a relationship between the power and charge plus minus of the electric side, which is the dipole antenna, against the measurements of the magnetic induction coil, which is in reality, I've said, the measuring and detecting of Schumann resonances. I'm a technician. I've said this before. I'm a technician. I'm always thinking of the signal path of the electric circuit, or the physical picture of the thing itself, which is attached to the principle or the equation, etc. Okay. So there needs to be, I'm not an abstract person, believe it or not. I'm not an abstract person. There needs to be something that's physically attached to it. That's why I'm not really a math person and any of that, because there's a lot of abstract symbols that you need to really have your head wrapped around what they do, and there may not be an actual physical function. Right? That's just my understanding of it. Right? So that may be a cop-out for it, but, it's my story. I'm sticking with it. But it's where it puts me with a lot of the average people, that a lot of people aren't good, most people aren't good with this higher mathematics stuff. And so that's why I can kind of put it in terms like pictures and analogy of ways people can understand it. Right? And you know what? I'm not a professional in the field. I'll just say I'm not getting paid to do anything in that field, so I don't need to know the math. Okay, not that hard. Like I too can do algebra. I can figure out some decently complicated stuff, but there's a level of like the gamma, the Fourier transform and that kind of stuff, much different order of stuff. Right? So I'm a technician. I'm always thinking of the signal path, how things work, how they're put together, of the electric signal. The physical picture of the thing itself, which is attached to the principle or the equation. I've done a video on this topic. I posted a manuscript here. This is a topic that should be gone through at length, of what exactly the modes are and how they're measured and the standard modes and all of that. Of the meaning of the modes relative to how they are used to measure the waves mathematically. Okay, this is where we're going to do that. This mathematical step needs to happen before the color can be assigned. So this is where we're talking about the so-called Fourier transform, these equations of taking something in a three-dimensional realm and putting it down into a two-dimensional graph so you can visualize it. And one of those is the Fourier, Fourier transform. And they're giving you I've done a video on it. They gave you the equation of something that's wrapped in like a circle and how to stretch it out, right? I don't know how to do that, but I've given you the equation for, the information on how they figured out, okay? I know enough to know what it is and enough to point you into that direction. Now it's up for you, if you're interested, to learn more about it, okay? And so again, it's the Fourier transform. That's one of the mathematics that come with transposing or transforming a wave into a fraction or into math. Okay, basically put it that way. Based on the different size and shape and slope of the wave, right? Different characteristics of the wave itself. Right? Those who are familiar with, and one of the classes I have in my college education is a background in statistics. I'm pretty sure it was in one of the modules in sociology that we had to take. One of the chapters in the sociology book was to statistical analysis. And so sociology fashions itself as a science. So you got to know the mathematics or the figuring of how the statistics work and the mean, the modi, and the modi, blah, 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 of all that. So I come into this with a general understanding of the mode from that. And so I can give you like that little bit of a transform from the theory into, visually how that works up here. All right. So if you're familiar with statistics, you will know, you'll have a good understanding of what the mode is, and you can kind of look at, it'll give you it'll give you a perspective, and it'll give you an appreciation for what the coloring is and how to come across it from that. If you can, you got to come in here from some door. I come into this learning, having read very similar graphs and this kind of stuff. So this isn't a whole new language for me. But for a lot of people, the newcomers, this is a whole new language for them. And I try and give you ways you can try and equate it to what you understand. All right. A way to look at this, the mode. But what is the mode, right? So a mode, right? So it's just, without getting into like multiple of them and how you get the coloring. So a mode, just to define it, it's a way to look at this, is to see it where things naturally clump up, right? So they have this kind of idealized version of like a bell curve, which some people know, there's more in the average, and so like this kind of thing. So it's the shape of it, so it kind of clumps up. The group assembles itself. It might be another way to put it. And then you can a base computational. Then base the computational model around that figure of whatever, of the shape or whatever you got. So here, a mode represents a shape of the wave. Okay. So this is where we look at the size, shape, or slope, the configuration of the wave. The mode is a way of comparison of the slope or the size or shape of the wave based on the charge or the current. So the charge is the height, the current is the width, and those represent themselves largely as the green bands of the Schumann resonances. Those are the current. Because these are inversely related, you can compare with the voltage or the charge or the current or the magnetics together. All right. So the voltage and charge work up one axis, work upside down, and the current or magnetics is the other axis, the work together. So there's 4 modes here to work with. Mode 1 is white, 2 is yellow, 3 is red, 4 is green. And the background, important to understand, important to remember, the background itself at rest is dark, dark blue. It's almost black. It's navy, which you call navy blue. White mode represents the most active relative to the wave height of the wave, yet, right, we call it a wave, but for the purpose of this, but it's not, technically, it's not specifically an actual wave. It's the electric side of it, which is voltage, and it's not a wave, it's not a frequency properly. Right? These are important to understand. So it's not the height of the Schumann resonances because it's a different type of signal path. It's a different type of antenna that's measuring that. It's a different antenna, it's a different portion of the equation than the magnetic induction coil. milliamps of the current, which is measuring the magnetism. It's measuring the magnetic flux, the quality of the signal. Okay. And so the hertz is, I've said this before, frequency. The voltage is not a wave properly. It's a decibel power, which is again plus or minus. Okay. More or less, basically, more or less voltage. Whereas frequency is peak to peak measurement, and hertz is a rate, which is a count of wave peaks, not a distance between them. So the frequency is a count of wave peak to wave peak, right? The distance in kilometers. Okay, so in our chart, the last panel we have on our dependencies is frequency, and the numbers that are there are given in kilometers. Okay. High peak, so hertz is a rate. It's not the distance between them. Important to know. Hertz is just the count of how many peaks. So if it's 8 hertz, that's eight peaks that have gone through in a second. High peak activity, the voltage voltage or charge of the system becomes the relative standard. Okay, so this is kind of where it starts establishing what the mode actually is relative to what you're reading. All right, so the high peak activity, where you get these spikes of charge of the system, becomes the relative standard for the value of the scale being measured. Okay. There is an actual number there. The number that's there is a relational value, 1 to the other between both axes relative to the graph. Okay. So mode 1 is 1 to 1, mode 2 is 1 to 2, mode 3 is 1 to 3, mode 4 is 1 to 4. So when we talk about the relative or relational and all this confusing jargon, you have to remember it is going from between the height of the signal to the width of the signal. Okay? Right? So that's what we're talking about when the qualitative is you're looking at, it's now no longer the absolute mathematical number that was measured. Now you're compiling, the spectrogram compiles a view, it compiles a picture, an image, based on 2 different sources from 2 different places. The hardware are 2 different places. They put them in 2 different places. They're measuring 2 different forces, and the spectrogram puts them together and gives you this 3-dimensional image based on the small mathematics. Like, I'm giving you this most simplest of the mathematics I can, and that the mode of 1 is a coloring of 1 to 1, whereas mode 1 to 2, you get twice as much coloring with the 2, and 3 times as much coloring with mode 3, and 4 times as much coloring as 4, but the wave height is not going to be as strong. This is hard to kind of visualize to people how the image on the spectrogram is produced based on what's in the atmosphere. But this is there's mathematics. That's why it's difficult to understand this, because there's mathematics involved in this. So even though this is the basic stuff, this simple enough equation, when applied to the colors of the dependency, right? So mode 1 is white, mode 2 is yellow, mode 3 is red, mode 4 is green, okay? You have the coloring that happens this way, and then the coloring that happens this way, based on, is it the amplitude or is it the quality, right? So the spectrogram itself is dumb. It's not measuring anything. It's not detecting anything. The antennas are smart. They have the information. They feed it to the spectrogram, and it kind of dumbs stuff down based on the size that's available for the 2 of them together, to work together as a team. That's why it sort of dumbs itself down in one way for the good of the team, if you can imagine that. The team being the electro and the magnetics, and the 3D representation in there as well of a frequency component, which gives you the depth of the picture, if you will. I don't know. It's hard to explain this. All right. So the simple enough equation, when applied to the colors of the dependency information, give me the paint by number schemata to decipher the color information presented on the spectrogram. All right, so these are the Patreon, which is a Patreon. They ask you to join. You got to join. You got to be part of Patreon. Please do. Please give me money there. But this is WordPress. This is free in the YouTube community. It's most of the post here, but there's a word count, there's a character count on the posts that I can make. So the whole thing isn't over at the whole thing is not at my YouTube channel community, which is why I need the WordPress, because I don't, the WordPress allows it to be free and allows it to be shareable. Okay. So, all right. So we're at, holy fuck, we're at an hour, 43 minutes. I'm going to play another like 10 minutes. I'm going to round this up to 2 hours, whatever. This is one of my instructional videos. This was a longer, I knew this was going to be long. I didn't think it would be this long. We'll add, but in the music ad, I played like 18 minutes of music. So maybe I'll play another 18 minutes worth of music and clock it out at just under 2 minutes, if we could. I don't know. It's Allison's birthday. Hopefully she'll be here at the premiere, if not in the comments, but you can comment to Allison underneath in the comments, say happy birthday, hopefully the plan is to be together soon, right? And so that takes resources. The universe will do its part, but I got to ask, I got to put it out to my people, right? That's why I did this. My channel is not monetized, right? I just know that and understand that I'm not monetized. I have enough of everything that I could be, but I keep this not monetized for you. So, I'm asking for your support. So through the PayPal or Patreon, I guess even, I have 5 people over there, 5 members over there, and if you're doing Patreon already, for the other channels, go over and go to mine. And, there's no minimum on it. And that's important to understand. Like, I don't have the minimum on my Patreon because I want to keep it accessible. I want to keep this as accessible to people as possible and keep it as public. And so it's important for me to do that. But by the same token, I need help from you guys as well. I'm no longer working for this boss who I'll just politely put the dragon lady. Oh my God, I'm happy not to, believe me, I am so happy not to be working for her. However, I need help from you guys, right? To get us together. And so it's a vote, your help through the PayPal or whatever. There's other ways, like that's what says everything. So anyway, on that cheery note, let's play some music here. Let me find my player. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, you got me all jacked up. Yeah, you got me all jacked. Yeah, you got me all jacked. Yeah, you got me all jacked up. Yeah, you got me all jacked up. Yeah, you got me all jacked up. Yeah, you got me all jacked. 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 Yeah, you got me all jacked.
Okay. I think what I'm gonna do is let this play out for another 3 minutes or something, because I am indeed falling for you. And, because it's the music. I have something up, like, ah, it's read 2 hours, this is an Aaron Mix vehicle. Let's just groove a little bit. It's good music. I don't know if you would have heard this anywhere else. You wouldn't have. You would not have heard this elsewhere. So, I'm not cheering out. We're going to play a few more minutes and, groove on out. And have a good rest of your day, folks. Love you. You all are fabulous. Thanks for being here. Namaste.